After being postponed multiple times, finally the UN Security Council passed a resolution calling for scaled-up humanitarian aid into Gaza. 13 votes in favor, Russia and the U.S. abstained, allowing the resolution to pass without a veto. But at the behest of the United States, the resolution went through several drafts throughout the week-long delay. Behind closed doors, the Americans pushed to alter the wording of the resolution to make it more favorable to Israel. Previous drafts called for an immediate cessation of hostilities. That was later downgraded to suspension of hostilities. But even that language was removed. Instead, the final resolution called to create the conditions for a sustainable cessation of hostilities, a far cry from a ceasefire. The previous draft called for a UN monitoring mechanism to exclusively oversee aid shipments. That was scaled back to a senior coordinator appointed by the Secretary General, who will then establish a monitoring mechanism, but that leaves the door open to possible coordination with Israel. And language that explicitly condemned indiscriminate attacks against civilians has been altered to simply call on all parties to adhere to international law. A frustrated Russia tried to add back in language calling for an immediate cessation of hostilities. The U.S. vetoed it.
Earlier, I said the vote would be a moment of truth, and that's what happened. The U.S. once again exposed their true face in front of the world, blocking an even extremely weak call for a cessation of hostilities in Gaza.
There's no disconnect here. We are all working to address the humanitarian needs on the ground, and we're working to address those needs immediately. That's what this resolution is about.
Riyad Mansour, the Palestinian ambassador to the UN, said a full ceasefire is needed and there is urgency to make it happen.
We will not relent until we reach an immediate ceasefire and having the massive amount of humanitarian assistance to the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip.
As for Israel, it has ignored Security Council resolutions in the past, and there are early indications that it is prepared to do so again. Israel's deputy UN ambassador said after the vote that his country still reserves the right to inspect all aid going into Gaza as it sees fit. It's now up to the UN Secretary General to figure out how to get more aid into Gaza as the resolution mandates. And he hinted that it could be quite difficult unless Israel changes its behavior.
The real problem is that the way Israel is conducting this offensive is creating massive obstacles to the distribution of humanitarian aid inside Gaza. An effective aid operation in Gaza requires security, staff who can work in safety, logistical capacity, and the resumption of commercial activity. These four elements do not exist.
As difficult as the negotiations were on this resolution, the real challenge might be in the coming weeks trying to implement it. Gabriel Elizondo, Al Jazeera, at the United Nations in New York.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.